Hello and welcome to another Office Hours capsule. That's right, a capsule. This is a small section of my Office Hours live stream that I do on Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. You can come join us on twitch.tv/theastropub or youtube.com/theastropublive. You can check right here. That is chat. Say hi, chat. Say hi to your future selves if you're watching this later. These are little sections that I pull out specifically because I want you to come watch me live. Join us for conversations. It's an AMA hangout. We watch the latest ISCs. We read the latest, all of the latest news. We discuss stuff, discuss lore. Lots of different things happen. So I'd love for you to join us live there if you get a chance to. But if you can't, that's okay. These are recorded, but I know 4-hour live stream is usually too dense for people to pick up. So I try to do these little sections to give you an idea of what these are like. So if you want to watch that later, you can. But, maybe a little taste before you come on in. So with that all being said, remember, if you're enjoying this video, if you like this content, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're liking the video and spreading the love around, and a little bell icon to get noticed when these videos go up immediately. And with all that being said, let's talk about 3.18 and expectations. So 3.18 is about to come out. It's important that we set expectations for 3.18 in terms of what we understand, what's going to be happening, what's in, what's not, what's the game going to look like, and should you come back to the game or start the game with 3.18. I'm going to do this video now, and then when 3.18 comes out later, I'll do this video again, kind of before and after sort of thing, and I'll even correct myself if I was wrong with some factors. But I want to make sure that people have realistic expectations for what's going to happen. Based off of my experience, I've been following, if you just found this, I've been following the game for years. Several years, almost 9 years now, and I've been making content for this game since 2016. So I have been very close to development for a very long time. So I'm not just some fly-by-night dude who just never done this before. This is what I've been doing, making content mainly for a while. So note that before we get started. But the very first thing we got to look at is the roadmap, because the roadmap will give us an idea of what CIG believes, has a good solid idea of what's going to make it in. So let's do that real quick. So let's look at the first one, Daymark Crash Site, a derelict settlement on Daymar using parts of the Star Runner and 600i, as well as some HABs adapted to the biome to create a point of interest with some type of activity, puzzle, traversal, hostile AI, missions, etc., as well as rewards for completion. So what is this? Well, this is just another crash site. It's going to be cool. It's going to be visually interesting and different, but it is effectively a test for them using their tools to create crash sites that are more hero locations, things that are not just generic crash sites that we've seen in the past. If you have been playing Star Citizen, 3.17.2, I believe, had Ghost Hollow. This is just the next evolution of Ghost Hollow with different ships. We're going to see this going forward as they impact the tools. We've already seen an 890 jump being worked on in the past in terms of these sorts of derelict sites, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that soon as well. And of course, this is all being done in the name of getting interesting sites at Pyro as well to work with. So this is an interesting site, but it's going to offer pretty much the same content that we see at Ghost Hollow and Underground Facilities or UGFs. Not too much. It's just a different flavor, a different backdrop to those same missions. So it's cool, but it's testing and backdrops, and that's committed. Now these are tentative, though they have talked about these real recently. New rivers. So now they're going to have biome-specific object rule sets around bodies of water in Hurston and Microtech, and lakes. So rivers and lakes. So just kind of increasing the diversification. So cool, but again, it's just flavor. It's them using the tool to try to populate them more and improve upon what they've already done. Looks nice, but it's the team kind of working on that. Sand cave archetype, again, cool, but again, it's just another cave. When it comes down to it, it's just going to be a cave like you've experienced before. It'll look pretty, but it'll be the same type of cave stuff you've been used to seeing for forever. And apparently this is new tech they're working on to try to improve the tech long-term about underground facilities and caves in general, so it'd be cool to see that, but this is just the beginnings of that. And the Grey Cat PTV racetrack. This is committed as well. So the Orison Vision Center on Crusader is going to have a Grey Cat PTV racetrack, which you can drive around with 8 other people or 8 other buggies in a race and just kind of doing some crazy stuff. So it's a nice little thing to do at the racetrack while at the convention center while there's nothing going on in the convention center. So nice, but it's a little bit new gameplay. You like that kind of stuff. Though I would 100% expect there to be nothing but chaos, explosions, people running around in gowns, people doing dancing in the middle of the racetracks to try to get people to hit them so they can give them crime stats. It's going to get messy very quickly in that region. So be warned about that. It'll be cool, but I think especially later on, it will require to kind of do those sorts of things. So this is all just the locations. A lot of people are like, yeah, Paul, that's great. Locations, I don't care. Let's look at the gameplay. Let's look at the gameplay. I'm going to we'll just tackle this right now. Cargo refactor system. The refactor of the ship cargo will allow both found and purchased cargo to be picked up, moved around, and placed onto the cargo grid of a ship. Now, what does this mean? Because a lot of people have different ideas, but I'll give you the idea of what I've been able to gather from talking with people like Jake and looking through all of the stuff. People should set their expectations properly. We already know, as of the last update, that PES is not going to have, which we'll talk about later as well, but it's not going to have I believe it's the matchmaking system. So you won't be able to jump right back into the last server you were necessarily in, which means that you won't necessarily be able to save where you last were. So you won't crash at a 30K and then reload right back into your ship with all your gear. So don't expect something like that to happen. What was told explicitly, I tried to push further and I was not told this information. I was told explicitly that the cargo system refactor is required for salvage. I asked, does that mean it's not going to be in for the commodity system? And I got returned, the cargo system is required for salvage. No committals each way. We do know that 318 is planned or is still planned to have the cargo system refactor, and that they're going to cover it at a later ISC down the line, next quarter, meaning sometime in November. So the question still is it going to be in 318? The answer is yes. It is 100% going to be in 318. But to the degree that it is a question. We have seen no updates from them. Very little mentions of it in most of their documentation. For those of you who don't know, CIG does monthly reports on the regular. Every month they do a monthly report, and they go into extensive detail about lots of different companies or lots of different departments inside the company and what they did that past month. Very little, if any, mention of the cargo refactor system has been in those monthly reports. There hasn't been a lot of discussion on Spectrum about this. It's been pretty much silent except for the HUD concepts they showed back in, I think, June or July, of the system that they're planning on using. I do not know to what extent the cargo system refactor is going to be in the game. It is going to be in game because Salvage is going to be in the game, as we're going to talk about later. So CIG may pull a technicality. It's in game. It's just not what you expect because CIG has not given us clear expectations for what this cargo refactor system is going to look like in game with 318. All we know is that it's required for salvage. So if you're one of those people who's like, cargo refactor is going to change the game, number one, most of what we've seen so far about it is just you can move cargo around in a cargo bay, which you can already do. Already, boxes can move in cargo bays and add in grids. The reality is we don't know. We just don't know what the extent this is, and CIG is not telling us anything about it. So neither of those things generally trend towards good expectations, though CIG is going to be talking about it later in ISE, so that could mean good things, but I would set your expectations as low as possible. Cargo system refactor, as far as I'm concerned, is only going to be in the salvage until otherwise specified, which means don't expect it to be in commodities, which means you're not going to be able to go to traders, you're not going to be able to go out there and buy commodities and have them populate in your stuff. Do not expect that in 3.18 until CIG explicitly shows it or tells it, just because we don't know. And this is one of the downfalls of CIG not being able to tell us these things, because why? Like, why can't they just tell us that fact? The answer is because they don't know. If they don't know, and 3.18 is already going into testing here soon with the release around IAE, which is the beginning of November, it starts to consider, for me, it starts to go, well, why, how can we trust this if it's going to be, there's lots of other things that are going to go into this. We still don't even know it's going to be into the testing phases. So for right now, hold your horses, calm down, don't expect it. Just pretend this doesn't exist. Because for as far as we can tell, it doesn't. Not except for Salvage. With that, let's move on. All right. Sandbox Prison Activities. The expansion of prison activities, a gameplay with a new suite of missions and sandbox activities to give inmates more opportunities to earn merits and to aid escapes from prison. Some pretty cool stuff, but it's going to be an expansion of what we currently have with the prison system. New missions, new interesting stuff, but it's not really going to be much beyond that. If you don't spend a lot of time in prison, you probably won't notice it. If you do spend a lot of time in prison, we'll have to see if it's even fun enough or interesting enough to do. We'll see. So, then we've got the Security Point Korea reactivation, which they've expanded Security Point Korea, and we know as of today that they have reduced the penalties for CS1 and CS2 to just fines. So if you get a CS1, so a level 1 or level 2 criminal, you will not be shot at by stations. So you will not have to go to Korea because you accidentally punched your friend and he hit the wrong button. You will not have to go to Korea because you were backing out and you didn't see that invisible turret, or that turret that wasn't in your view screen, and you bumped into it, and now you're suddenly kill on sight. It's no longer going to be a thing. You can go to any terminal and pay off those fines. Once you get to CS3 and higher, then you're going to have to go to Security Point Korea, because that is the only location you can hack away your crime stat. That is right. There is only one place now you'll be able to hack away your crime stat, and it's at Security Point Korea, which is on top of all of this going to get its own little miniature jump town, where you can attack Security Point Korea, disable everything, get out. You can kill all of the AI on there, which there'll be security AI, get a code and access a contraband kind of spawner, which will give you drugs and other aspects of other illegal objects, which you can then sell on the market for some profit. And while you're doing this, a counter mission will spawn where you are going to have to deal with other players coming to give you. It's our first kind of in-game mini event with a completely overhauled interior for for Korea. It's a mini jump town. It's great. Problem is, it's also going to be the only place you can hack away your crime stats. So chaos will ensue for sure. It's cool. If you enjoy PvP, this is going to be the new PvP hotspot. If you're a big PvP player, this might be a good idea. So, all right, new missions Orison. This is another cool aspect. If you are an FPS player, if you've been looking for new FPS content other than UGFs, these new missions are going to be great. If you've played Siege of Orison, they're going to activate some of these platforms again outside of Siege of Orison for similar missions. You're going to go through the buildings and kill Ninetales operatives, and you're going to kill Ninetales lieutenants, or other, like, find objects and bring them back, that sort of thing. So it's just going to be like UGFs, but on the Orison platform. So a little bit more diverse, hopefully more money, but who knows. So more stuff like that's more targeted. And lastly, salvage hull stripping. Now, what does this mean? Salvage hull stripping is not salvage. Not in the complete way. It is salvage. It's just step 0 of salvage. Every ship has hull plating around it. What hull stripping means is that it'll remove the stripping, the hull plating of your ship, and turn it into goo. And this goo will then be used that you can sell on the market. This does not mean you can extract components. This does not mean you can kill the entire superstructure. Just the goo. Get the goo. And only 2 ships can do that, the Vulture, which will be released in 3.18, and the Reclaimer. And these things will be processed into boxes, and those boxes will then be able to be sold in the commodity markets for something. Probably similar to scrap, probably is what they'll be sold as. This is cool, and it's an important aspect of Salvage, but it's not everything that people hope for Salvage yet. There are future aspects that they're already working on called hull munching. We'll see how long that stays on the progress tracker as of now, but it is on the progress tracker as of now. And it allows you for some light hull repair. Not repair, but if you get scarred up and dinged, you can return some of your ship's health on its exterior, so like on its hull plating, by pulling some salvage off of another ship. So, but only with your hand mining tool, your hand salvage tool. But other than that, it's fairly simple. I would not expect this to be extensive, though there are going to be derelict ships which will spawn in asteroid belts in space, similar to asteroids, which you can scan for and then disassemble. They'll be basically empty ship hulls that are broken into pieces. The status that your ship enters when your ship explodes, but they'll stick there longer, which they needed to happen because of PES. PES needed to exist for that to happen. So Salvage is a great example of technologies converging. It needed PES and needed the new cargo mechanics. Both of those will be in place for Salvage. As I said before, expecting cargo beyond Salvage is probably not a good idea. So keep that very much tuned down until we have a 100% confirmation from CIG on that part. All right. All right, so let's go over ships and vehicles. We know there's only 2 so far that are listed, but expect a couple of others. We've got the Drake Vulture, which is the first medium, small-sized, entry-level salvage ship, and the Drake Corsair. This is the reason why both of these are being added is because CIG is planning on 3.18 releasing around IAE, which is usually around the beginning of November, though they've changed it every now and then, so it could be at the end of November. Likely around Thanksgiving would be my guess, but depending because of how complicated 3.18 is. So we'll have to see on that one. But there are also probably going to be other vehicles. We know there's at least one unannounced ground vehicle and one announced ship, which will be available likely at IAE, straight to flyable. So these will not be the only ships or vehicles available for that patch. Then we've got the Grey Cat multi-tool salvage attachment, something you need to have to do a hand salvage. We know that's going to be in the game. And lastly, this is the big one, persistent entity streaming. What is PES? Why do we have PES in Star Citizen? What does this mean? Well, implementation of persistent entity streaming core technology into Star Citizen, making use of the services such as entity graph and replication layer. This will allow every dynamic object in the game to fully persist across all servers, irrelevant of whether it was owned or held by a player. How will this work? Well, the best my stupid brain can grasp on this is that PES specifically is nothing more than persistence. Effectively, take what you have right now in 3.17.2 and have things persist between crashes. So if you were on a station or you were in the middle of a combat on a bunker mission, when you crash, you come back, your stuff is still with you through that. You may still be at the bunker. I don't know 100% if it'll save your position or not. It should, but based off of what CIG has said, don't expect it. You still probably go back to the last station you were at, or last landing zone you were at, but you may not lose reputation. But it's hard to tell. CIG has not been very specific on how this will work in their own explanation, except for effectively what we have in 3.17.2, you will have in Star Citizen, or in Star Citizen 3.18. They're going to be the same things. Do not expect significant increases in whatever persistence will happen. Eventually, this will lead to you persisting in, so if you log out in the middle of space, not in your ship, but like just accidentally crash and you log back in, you will log back into exactly where you left off because you log back into that direct server and continuing forward. It also leads to the ability to do things like server meshing in the future. And the infamous coffee mug explanation, dropping a coffee mug in the middle of the forest and then moving away and coming back and that coffee mug comes back. But CIG is playing it very close to the chest and very simple for 3.18's release. It's just going to be 3.17 too. So you won't see any difference. There could be some improvement. If everything works out correctly, the stuff we normally complain about with servers, things like derpy AI and slow loading inventory screens, those sorts of issues should be mitigated with PES. Should be. Doesn't mean it will, but it should be. Because what effectively PES does is takes a lot of the things that the game servers had to store, like the locations of players, the locations of items, like say you left your ship off, or a vital aspect of a mission, so like a box that was required for complete your mission. If you left that in the middle of Daymar, on a desert in Daymar, and you flew away, the game server had to remember where that box was at all times and keep that in its active memory. And everything, or maybe even passive memory, I don't remember, but it's like everything in the game had to be stored on the game server. Now, all of that information is going to be pulled off the game server and put into this back-end service, this persistent entity, the entity graph. So it no longer has to have that files in game, which means that the longer these servers stay up, the less information they're going to have to hold into their brain, which means that, in theory, AI should work better. Everything should respond better, just because the game servers don't have to care about that stuff in the short term. It just has to focus on the entities that are in front of or around the player. So we could see some improvement on that. But the one thing that's not on this list that we know is going to be added is Gen 12. The next renderer that CIG is finished and implementing should be mostly complete, if not entirely complete, by 3.18's release. They haven't put it on the roadmap, or on the release view, but that's something they have confirmed that they're going to add to the game. Not Vulkan yet, but the new renderer. This is the reason why 3.17 had a 60% performance boost for most players when it released, because they added one aspect of Gen 12. Again, don't be celebrating to the hills. like this is not going to give you 400 FPS in Star Citizen, but it should, in theory, again, significantly improve your experience with Star Citizen with most rigs, especially high-end rigs. It should reduce some of the problems that have happened as a result. It's not designed to do that. It's just the next renderer so they can add more things and populate more things in the game, but they're not going to populate more things in the game until later. So in theory, it should give you some bonuses, some boosts. So what is 3.18? What should you think about 3.18? And should you go into 3.18, like right, you come back if you're waiting for it? This is going to sound weird, but no. I do not believe it is a good time for new players to come back with 3.18. If you're a hardcore player, you're going to come back no matter what I say is going to say. But if you're a new player, or if you're a longtime player who's left the game and coming back recently, I would stay away from 3.18. 3.18 is set up to be a very, very interesting experience, probably a lot more buggy than you think. There may be some significant performance improvements, but the gameplay will not significantly change. And in general, the experience will be more of the same. So if you're currently playing Star Citizen 3.17.2 and you're like, I don't enjoy this experience, I'll wait for it to get better, 3.18 is not that patch. On top of that, CIG is committing to releasing 3.18 before IAE. That is an incredibly short crunch time. And CIG is more than likely going to hit that goal. Whether it's ready or not to go, it's going to go. They're going to make it as best they can, but probably not. On top of that, CIG is likely going to throw a free flight at this later in the year, which will make it even worse. Great for testing, but not good for performance. So I would say this is the first patch in a long time. I will say, if you're a brand new player, stay away. It's just not worth it. I could be wrong. I'm going to do another review after the fact, once the game's been in PTU a little bit longer, and I can kind of get my own hands on it and give you a better idea as a player of the game. But I do want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think I'm just being a pessimist? I'm being a hater, whatever? Do you think I'm right? Do you have your own interpretations? Please let me know in the comments below. I do always like to hear your conversations. I don't always respond, but I do read every comment, so please keep it civil, because if you don't, I will take matters in my own hands. I'm not trying to make anyone's dream hurt. I'm not trying to say everything's bad or everything's perfect. I'm just trying to keep things as realistic as possible, considering what CIG has told us or is willing to tell us. So, but thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoy this. Come join us live on Thursdays. We're gonna have a conversation about this right now, right after the fact. Twitch.tv/TheAstroPub, YouTube.com/TheAstroPubLive. Love to see you here. Like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.